I want you guys to do better than I did in my last draft. I was in the later rounds. I had no idea what wide receivers I should take. I only had four on my team, and I was struggling. I was scouring the internet trying to find guys at the last second. My league mates hated me. I want better for you guys. I did some research similar to my last video where I looked up running backs based on NFC ADP, which is essentially a platform where a lot of experts do drafts and tournaments. And these are the industry analysts, right? These are the dudes who are supposedly the experts. It compares their ADP and the way they draft versus the way we draft, right? And Sleeper, Yahoo, um, ESPN, and all those types of platforms. So this time I'm going to do it for wide receivers. So by the end of this video, hopefully you guys have a few names of dudes that you want to be targeting at the end of your fantasy drafts. If you like the value from this video, if you appreciate the stuff that I'm doing, I'd really appreciate a like and a sub. Do it at the end of the video if you feel like you got some value. I don't make any money from this, but I do have a free cheat sheet you guys can go grab, download. It's going to be at the top of my YouTube description. And with that said, guys, let's hop into the list of players. And at the top of the list is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. So Wan'Dale Robinson has a lot of PPR value. He's going about 34 rounds ahead in these NFC drafts. Now look here, he's in the 175th pick, right? So, what is that? 16th round, maybe even more than that. So keep in mind, he's kind of more of like a dart throw in like a PPR type league. I think Neighbors is going to get most of the work and most of the attention, but Wan'Dale could be an interesting piece, especially if anything were to happen to Neighbors and if the Giants offense in general looks a little better than they've looked in the preseason. Next on the list is somebody that I really like. It's Dontayvion Wicks. He's not necessarily a deep sleeper, but he is a sleeper. He's a big play guy, right? And although he's sitting behind Christian Watson, I think they're going to carve a role out for him. And we already saw in the preseason he caught like a 65-yard touchdown pass from Jordan Love. So Dontayvion Wicks is somebody that a lot of experts are really high on, and they're you want a piece of this Packers offense. I think Dontayvion Wicks is a great way to get a cheap piece of that offense. I'm gonna run through these guys a little bit faster just because there's a lot of names on this list. Josh Palmer, he's gonna be the top dog for the Chargers. They are a run first team, but he should be the top guy for now, right? He's somebody that they trust and that they like. Lad McConkey is going to emerge and he's going to have a role maybe like midway through the season, usually like that post-bye bump for rookies. But Josh Palmer's still a dude that I'd really try to target. I would be happy to get him anywhere after like the 11th, 12th round. Next guy is Jalen Tolbert. This one's very clear thesis. He's the wide receiver 3, and the dude ahead of him, the wide receiver 2, is Cooks, who's 31 years old. So high-powered, pass-first offense. Even the wide receiver 3 could produce some utility for us, some value. Could be like a in a super deep 16 team league is somebody that you can probably throw in at the last spot on your team. Next guy is Gabe Davis. Again, not a deep sleeper, but he's a sleeper. New team, right? He's on the Jags now. Let's see if the boom bust nature of Gabe Davis holds true. You're only going to have to pay about a 14th round. For us, it's more like a 17th, 16th round pick. So grab a dude like Gabe Davis and just see what happens, right? Throw him at the end of your bench after like week 1 or 2 of the season. If he's asked, or if he doesn't pop off any of those weeks, throw him to the waiver wire. Right? I mean, you can probably apply that same logic to all these guys. If any of them don't produce for you, just drop them, right? That's the whole point of getting these dart throws. You want to cycle through them as the season goes on. Next guy is Demarcus Robinson. Very similar to Jalen Tolbert. He's a wide receiver 3. But the dude ahead of him, who, although productive, Cooper Kupp, if he were to go down, he'd emerge as the number 2 guy. So he's solidified as a wide receiver 3 for the Rams. It's a great offense. It's another one of those offenses you really want to get pieces of. And I don't usually ever say to handcuff wide receivers, but Demarcus Robinson to me is like a wide receiver handcuff. If anything were to happen to Puka or Kupp, Demarcus Robinson would be pretty solid in my opinion. Next guy is going to be Mike Wilson. He's going in the 15th round in NFC and in the 17th, 179 plus for us bald idiots. And he's the wide receiver 2 for a high-powered Arizona offense. Very clear thesis there. There's a lot of hype around Marvin Harrison Jr., understandably so. Trey McBride should probably be the number 1 or number 2 option for them. But then I think it's going to be Mike Wilson as like the number 3 option. He's a big play guy, down the field stretcher. He's a red zone threat. I think you can do a lot worse than a guy like Michael Wilson, right? So they're taking him in the 15th round. We're taking him in the in the 17th, I think he's somebody that I'd be very happy to target. Quentin Johnston's an interesting one to me. Experts are drafting him ahead of us, about 19 spots ahead. So they might be drafting him on like the potential, right? I mean, he was cheeks, dude. He was bad by every metric. Matt Harmon has reception perception. One of the best experts in the industry. He does a lot of like wide receiver charting, and he creates these like yearly profiles on wide receivers. Quentin Johnston performed in like the first set or second percentile in pretty much every metric, which means he's one of the worst wide receivers I've ever seen charted. So maybe I think the thing is he's big and fast, right? So if he could get better in any way, he could have some value. So I understand it. There is like a sunk cost thing where the Chargers spent a lot of draft capital on him. I know it's a new regime and a new front office and stuff, but you know, if you have this raw piece, this raw talent on your team, I understand why you might want to get him involved. So you can do worse. Jalen Polk, a good dude to target if you're looking for a piece of the Patriots offense. If you think that they're going to turn it around and that they're going to be a good team, then Jalen Polk could emerge easily as the wide receiver one for that team. So that's somebody that I would be targeting. Next guy on the list is going to be DeMario Douglas. Very similar to Jalen Polk. He already kind of emerged as like the number one guy last year in terms of like a target share. But he's really he's a short yardage merchant. He's only somebody that would be targeting in PPR formats. And even then, I think there's just more exciting options. Kind of like the next guy on my list, who I really like. Call it bias because I did take him. As I mentioned, I was sitting there not sure who to take. I ended up going with Darnell Mooney. He's going to be the wide receiver 2 for Atlanta. Pretty clear cut. And they project to have one of the easiest strength of schedules for wide receivers. And they have a new quarterback, Kirk Cousins, who we've seen can actually help 2 wide receivers produce, right? Like we had Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. We had Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. Like we've seen Kirk Cousins teams be able to produce for a wide receiver too. So Darnell Mooney, somebody that I like more and more the more I see like camp videos. He seems to be like the deep, downfield stretcher. He's very fast. He already showed us at some point in his career that he can produce. He can be a productive NFL wide receiver. He's somebody that I really like anywhere after like the 12th round even. Like I'd put Darnell Mooney kind of in that Josh Palmer category. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do like Mooney a lot. Next guy is Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is a tough one because we expect the Denver offense to be kind of a dink and dunk offense with Bo Nix. We expect Sean Payton to really utilize, short field, manufactured touches, end around, stuff like that. Just the way, Sean Payton's done his whole career. Now you can say it's because they had Drew Brees, but now they have Bo Nix, who also is like a very accurate dink and dunk, will get you down the field, 10 yards at a time type guy. And Marvin Mims is kind of the antithesis to that. He's a deep field, very quick field stretching type wide receiver, and his role is kind of undefined. We don't really know if he's going to be the number 2 guy. Is he going to be the number 3 guy behind Franklin? I think he ends up being the number 2 guy. I think Franklin is still really raw. Like some reports came out recently that Franklin seems, unready or not ready for the physicality of the NFL. Not something you want to hear from an NFL player. So Marvin Mims is a guy that I take a dart throw on him, throw him at the end of my bench, see what happens the first couple weeks. If the Broncos seem like they're passing deep and that they're actually stretching the field and they're taking shots, Marvin Mims might be the beneficiary of that. Next on the list is Rashod Bateman. Very similar to Marvin Mims. He should be the number 2 guy on a team that doesn't really throw deep and doesn't really use a number 2 wide receiver very much. Or at least we've never seen a wide receiver 2 be able to profit in a Lamar Jackson, Jim Harbaugh type offense. Or John Harbaugh? Which one? Jim, right? Jim Harbaugh is the coach for the Ravens. So he's going in like the 18th round, right? So this is like a super deep sleeper, but he's a guy that, like, he is the wide receiver 2 for the Ravens. He's extremely talented, right? So again, Matt Harmon, he's in love with Rashod Bateman, and he says like he thinks Bateman can actually have a role this year. There's been some beat reports too that Bateman looks really good in camp and that he's going to be very involved. Jim Harbaugh himself said he's excited for Rashod Bateman. I might play that clip of Matt Harmon talking about Rashod Bateman. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, as I mentioned, it doesn't usually amount to much, but talent tends sometimes can win, man. And I know there's not a lot of meat on the bone after Andrews and Say Flowers, but maybe Bateman can do something. Next guy on the list is Josh Downs. He's just going to he's going to have a solid role for the Colts. He's going to play out of the slot, but he's more of like a deep field stretcher. So he's a guy that I can imagine if the Colts do want to unlock the offense and use more like downfield stuff, I think Josh Downs might be able to take that role over. Now, Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell have been like the deep field stretching backs, but I can imagine Josh Downs. They're like, why are we using these? An unproven rookie and a dude who was just running cardio routes, Alec Pierce last year. When we have this exciting talent, Josh Downs. I know he's injured, but I can see him having a role. The next guy on the list is Ricky Pearsall. This is a tough one. He's a very deep sleeper. He can be really good, if not great, if Ayuk gets traded. He's very talented. The problem is, even if Ayuk were to get traded, and even if Debo were to get injured, he'd still at best be the third option. There's just so many mouths to feed on the Niners. If you're in any type of keeper format, he's a dude that I like to take late. You never know what happens next offseason. And then now there are some guys at the end of this list that are negative values, meaning we are taking them before experts are taking them. I think it's just a good idea to look at some of these guys. Maybe you might want to stay away from them depending on how much you trust these experts. Maybe you have a gut feeling. That's up to you. First guy is Mike Williams. He's going in the 13th round. I don't understand it. He's coming off an ACL injury. He's probably not going to play week 1, week 2. Who knows? He's 29 years old. He's on a new team. And he's with Aaron Rodgers, who in the past has been able to create value out of a wide receiver too. But I don't know if Aaron Rodgers can still do that. I don't know if there's going to be enough meat on the bone after Brees and Garrett Wilson. I just think you can do better, right, in the 13th round. You can take a Josh Palmer. You could take a Darnell Mooney. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not excited about that. I understand why, right? I mean, 13th round for the experts, that means they're still taking him in the 13th round. But for me personally, I'm off him. Next guy, I think I'm fully off of Rashid Shaheed. He's getting taken even earlier than Mike Williams, but experts are taking him even later. He's always injured, man. He's always boom bust. And if we're worried about Chris Olave producing for the Saints, and we're worried about how bad the offense is going to be, why are we excited about the wide receiver too? This doesn't make sense to me. Next guy's Adonai Mitchell. Kind of the same issues with Adonai Mitchell and Rashid Shaheed. Like they haven't unlocked the downfield. Like I said for Josh Downs, they haven't really used like downfield passing. So Adonai Mitchell is kind of a merchant when it comes to that. But the Colts do have a high pace of play. So if you think that they're going to unlock it, Adonai Mitchell might be the guy that benefits. But if they don't, Josh Downs and Adonai Mitchell are both going to be unusable. Next guy on the list. This is a tough one. This one I actually have a counter to it. So Xavier Legette, he's the exciting young Southern boy out of Carolina. He's behind Jonathan Mingo on the depth chart. He's going to be behind Deontay Johnson on the depth chart. But I think if things go sour for the Panthers early and they maybe start the season like 1-5, 0-4, 0-6, whatever, I can imagine them just being like, all right, let's see what we got out of the young guys. He's a pretty raw but very athletic player. Think like AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. He's very big and very fast, but his route running, has much to be desired. But it's a bad offense. He's raw, but he's very athletic. If things go sour, I can imagine them being like, let's just see what we got in him. Deontay Johnson is like the perfect veteran to have in your room because I think he can teach these young guys how to run routes and how to be a good NFL wide receiver. At least, I don't know. I have no evidence to support that, but maybe they learn just by watching how good Deontay Johnson is as a route runner. And Deontay Johnson could easily get injured. So guys, that's the list. I'm sorry if it's a little bit long. I'm sorry if I rambled on about some of these players, but I hope it helps you. Check out these guys that I highlighted: Dontayvion Wicks, Darnell Mooney, Rashod Bateman, Xavier Legette. Throw them at the end of your queue. See what happens, man. Jalen Polk's another one that I'd probably highlight. If this video did help you, if you found it, valuable in any way, why don't you give your boy a like, give your boy a sub, man? I really appreciate it. Head over, get that cheat sheet, dude. It's only the top 100, but it should help you in those first 9-10 rounds. I think those are the most important rounds. Hope you guys liked the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.